Ah, it's cool, man. That's fantastic. I go shop. I go shop next tomorrow. I go shop next tomorrow. It's fantastic bullshit, man. Hello, and welcome to this edition of the Jolly Heretic. I'm sorry, I was just practicing my Nigerian English because now that the leader of the opposition in the UK and perhaps the future Prime Minister is Nigerian, is a first-generation Nigerian immigrant, I thought it would be a good idea. And what I want to talk about today is basically the fact that England has allowed itself to now be taken over by two foreigners. Both the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition are basically foreigners. And not only that, they embody, as far as I can see, almost all of the stereotypes about the ethnic group from which they come. And in this video, I want to look at what those stereotypes are and also why it is that if you allow foreigners to, they are likely to take over a country. But before I do so, could you please subscribe? Could you subscribe here on YouTube, and could you subscribe on my Substack, thejollyheretic.com, where if you like what I do, you can support me for the cost of a pint of beer a month, and where I have in-person interviews, where I have movies that I'm making, where I have all the most based content, where I have transcripts of the videos I make. And as I say, if you like what I do, you can support me, and that would be jolly good. But also, please do subscribe here on YouTube. It really helps me most violently if you do that, and leave a comment and a like and all that stuff. Okay, so here's the situation, chaps. The Conservative Party has elected a foreigner as its leader. This person, by no reasonable definition, can be regarded as British. She is of Yoruba, Nigerian parentage. She was born using a loophole that was closed in about 1983. She was born in 1980 in England. Her parents came to England in order to get her a British passport because there was a loophole whereby if you were born in the UK, you could automatically have a British passport even if both your parents were foreign and they were here temporarily. She was what you might call an anchor baby. And then they went straight back to Nigeria, and she was raised in Nigeria until she was about 15 years old, where due to discord and things like that, they then decided it would be a good idea to come to the UK, which they did, and then she went to University of Sussex and London in the UK, and has now become leader of the opposition. But she would herself admit this, she is a Nigerian, she is not British. But she is also a Yoruba, and it's fascinating the degree to which she typifies all that is true according to stereotypes that my Nigerian friends tell me about. I used to live with a Nigerian who was an Igbo. The stereotypes about the Yoruba, if you are an Igbo, are as follows. 1, they are highly educated and ambitious. Indeed, they were the first group in Nigeria to take up the British opportunities of education, which is why the Yoruba tend to dominate things. They may not be the highest, the sort of brightest group in the country, but they are the most educated, and they tend to dominate things. So, is this true of Kemi Badenoch? Well, obviously, she's educated and ambitious. Look at her. She's managed to become leader of the opposition despite being a Nigerian. I mean, you've got to be pretty ballsy and ambitious to be able to get that far. Secondly, they are loud, assertive, and passionate. Now, I think this is the what it seems to be clear about Badenoch is that she offends people, she upsets people, she is direct and blunt and whatever. So, this is definitely true of her. Thirdly, they are skillful orators. Well, evidently, even when she did her speech yesterday accepting the leadership of the Conservative Party, or whatever, on Saturday, she was a skillful speaker. I don't think we can doubt that. So she has that Yoruba trait. Fourthly, they are quite a traditional people by Nigerian standards. They uphold traditional and conservative sort of values. So, I mean, that's clearly true of Kemi Badenoch. She's involved in the Conservative Party rather than the Labour Party. And indeed, Dawn Butler, a black Labour MP, has expressed her bitterness about the success of Kemi Badenoch, stating or sharing a tweet stating that this is white supremacy wearing blackface. I mean, such is the bitterness of the success of a fellow black woman. They enjoy parties. These parties, by the way, are known as Owambe. I've absolutely no idea if Kemi Badenoch enjoys parties, but she seems quite pro-social, so let's assume she enjoys the old Owambe. They are particularly into hierarchy and deference, in particular the Dubale, which is that you kneel in deference to people. I can't say if she does that. They are wealthy and they are very, very interested in status, particularly around Lagos, which is where a lot of them are from. Well, obviously, status, leader of the Conservative Party, whatever, definitely into the old status. They're very good at acting and performing, such that Nollywood, which is, of course, the Nigerian film industry, is dominated by Yoruba. Well, clearly, she's an excellent performer. She's a successful politician. She's a good speaker and all this kind of thing. So, yeah, she's got the Nollywood genes. And finally, they are politically highly conscious. They're very politically aware. They're very, very involved in politics. Well, clearly, she's that as well. So it seems to me that a stereotypical Yoruba is ruling the country, and this should have been, or ruling, is perhaps going to rule the country, and is the leader of the opposition, ruling the Conservative Party. Now, her name, what does her name actually mean? Well, her original is Olukeme Olofunto Adoyoke. Well, Olukeme means God cherishes me. Well, he's certainly looking after her interests. Olofunto means God gives me joy. And Adoyoke means the crown elevates. Yoruba surnames are often indications of the way they perceive themselves in the community. So if you're a bit of a Yoruba aristocrat and you have a crown, then you will say the crown elevates me, and that becomes your surname. These kind of surnames were adopted among the Yoruban aristocracy in the sort of 19th century, which I assume she's part of, the Yoruban aristocracy. Now, what we have with Keir Starmer, very similar. Starmer is a German name. It comes from Stürmer, storm, so a person who is stormy, of stormy temperament. It's an anglicisation of that. And it seems to reflect the fact that in the 18th or 19th century, around about the time of the Napoleonic Wars, instability in Germany, that sort of thing, a lot of Germans came to England. And I think that's what's going on with Keir Starmer. Now, even though his German ancestor probably came here a couple of hundred years ago, it's wonderful the way he's managed to embody almost every stereotype about Germans. Germans, I mean, what we stereotype as being organised. Is he organised? Well, yes. I mean, he's the organiser of the Crown Prosecution Service, so he's obviously a highly organised kind of a guy. Is he disciplined? Yes. I mean, he's just this plodder that's gradually made his way up to the highest office in the land. It reminds me rather of the song in Gilbert and Sullivan about the I thought so little they rewarded me by making me the Marshal of the Queen's Navy. It's like that, isn't it? He's just sort of plodded his way up and found himself as Prime Minister. Is he blunt? Germans are notoriously blunt, aren't they? Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, you stupid idiot. Yeah. Well, yes, he is blunt. I mean, he's blunt enough to call people that care about their country and care about 3 little girls being murdered by a foreigner. He's blunt enough to call them far-right thugs. So we can, I think, agree that he has a certain Germanic bluntness. He's rule-following to a ridiculous degree. That's why there has to be all these minutiae of the law and preventing free speech and all that kind of thing. Very private person. Germans are notoriously private, aren't they? I mean, they're not very forthcoming. So private, doesn't talk about his feelings, doesn't have dreams. Private even with himself. Doesn't have dreams, doesn't talk about his emotions, represses everything like a German does, so that it comes out in a big explosion every so often in the form of Hitler or whatever. I mean, that's the stereotype about Germans, and I mean, this is definitely Starmer, isn't it? It's all repressed, and then it comes out in an explosion of fury because people are daring to stand up to him. And obviously serious and lacking in a sense of humour. I mean, could there be anyone more serious and lacking in a sense of humour than Sir Keir Starmer? So he embodies every stereotype every main stereotype about the Germans, just as Kemi does every stereotype about the Yorubans. Now, why is it that foreigners, if you allow them to, will take over? Now, this is important because you can say the same thing about some generations ago. We had political leaders that were from a large number of political leaders that emanated from the working class and from the lower middle class. And a long time ago, that was impossible. There was no way that a person that was working class or lower middle class could end up being a member of parliament. They could even vote, let alone becoming prime minister. So ask yourself why, if you bring in laws which allow members of these classes to get into politics, they will likely take over. Well, it seems to me that they A will be the elite of their class. I mean, it's true that there are social class variations in intelligence and personality and whatever, in a direction. High social class is generally associated with high intelligence on average, and pro-social personality of the kind that will get you into positions of power. But there are variations within classes, and these will tend to be the very, very elite of their class who've been suppressed for many, many generations. That's the first reason. Secondly, they've suffered. They've gone through genuine suffering and hardship, which has caused them to come up with coping mechanisms to deal with suffering and hardship, which has made them based, which has made them hard-working, which has made them able to deal with knockbacks. Are you ready for the future of the West?